that goes green. And that looks right. I think we have audio.
Excellent.
And that looks right. I think we have audio. Damn, something is working. Yeah, we are definitely live. And I think we can just get started. So I'm just going to bid everyone welcome. The no one that's actually watching yet, and the people that are watching this after the fact. This is the third official episode of the Blue Horseshoe Club, and we have to apologize that we've had a little bit of technical difficulties the last few days, or weeks rather. Last week we couldn't actually, well, we did finish the show, and there was a few people that was lucky to be tuned in and watching it live. But since we had to scoop over because EP3 was actually doing an event and had to have their streaming slot for that, the Theomurky event was running, we had to go and be hosted on Roden's stream. So what happened was that Roden had not been streaming for a long time on his own stream, so he had never actually set up his stream to record things, which we figured out after the fact. So a lot of very interesting talk about rock pool changes, and Dirk going on a long rant about depletion with myself. This was all lost and is now only in the minds and memories of some of the people out there that were lucky enough to actually tune in. So we sat down and decided to get this fixed. So now Roden's Twitch is supposed to be able to host things, and so is mine. But I am trying to start up using YouTube Gaming as a streaming service instead of Twitch, because it has a lot of benefits that McLeod actually pointed out to me, being the real pro in the EVE universe. So now I'm doing this, and I'm putting it on my own stream because, again, EP3 has been having some activities today, as most of you might have noticed. We are now in the first round of the feeder rounds of the AT, the tournament. Is it 15? It's AT 15, right?
Yes, it's 15.
Yeah. So that has been kicking off, and of course that had some interesting technical difficulties as well, because initially they were only capable of showing one of the games in one of the arenas. The other one was then just commented in audio. So we're all just getting used to making these things. So again, welcome to anyone that's actually watching this now live, and to anyone watching it after the fact. I'm going to introduce our guests, because personally I don't think that guests should introduce themselves. This is not really speed dating. So first off, next to me, well, we could do speed dating, but I think the whole flirty thing, we might want to move it to chatterbait. So first off, next to me is the one and only, the new Imperial Bard, Chandragan, that has been embracing the EVE community and really been showing us how things are done. I have invited Chandragan here to talk about how to make a living as an entertainer in the EVE universe. Say hi, Chandragan.
G'day guys, how's it going?
And we are very pleased that you wanted to do this, because it is crazy early down under.
Yes, it's just hit 8 a.m, but all is good.
And next to Chandragan, of course, is the illustrious McLeod, that many in the EVE media will know and recognize. He is often seen with his partner in crime, Eric Ashmock, over on the Whiskey Gaming Show, and before that on the Undead show, where they were meant to talk us to death, and it was usually not the case. We survived.
I always thought that tagline was the worst tagline in the entire world.
It was
Just
entertaining.
putting it out there. Like I was just like, whoever made that tagline like should just get shot because like it was before I was on there. It was before Eric was on there. It was like it was apparently it was the tagline that was on there like from the start when neither of us were actually a part of it. So
In any case, you've been
I always
making
thought it
a
was bad.
lot of content for a long time, and sometime I think it was
Background.
3 or 6 months ago, you started being very heavily active in the professional side of INN, being one of their first producers to actually solely focus on helping other content creators create their content and produce for them. So he is now running the production side of the Talking in Station show, which is quite popular show on the INN stream. And last but definitely not least, a newcomer, a proper new bro, Cliff Boland. Well, I have seen you around. You've been very prolific, I think is the correct term. You've shown your face in my SCC lounge and being very vocal and active on Twitch streams, and I suspect that you've been following pretty much every show and content being created out there. You said to me you started about 2 or 3 months ago playing Eve.
Yeah, I started in early March, actually, late March, sorry. Went to a party, guy was like, hey, you heard about Eve? We were talking about just video games, telling him about Kerbal, and I was like, yeah, I've played Eve before and whatever, and I thought, oh, I'll go try another 14-day trial. I didn't even know it was fucking free to play, dude. And, sorry if I won't watch my mouth. Logged on, did my thing, and I was like, oh, it's free to play. This is great. I can actually like get into it, and joined a mining corp. Basically ended up starting a coup in it and taking about 11 people with us and starting our own mining op and in Placid region.
Fantastic.
And I ended up CEO.
That's the proper way of starting your Eve career. Start by staging a coup. That takes me back something like 15 years actually, because that's pretty much what I did. I staged a coup from beta where we had a 400-500 man group, and I basically took half of them with me and started my own thing. So that's a good way of starting. Maybe you'll stay on for another 15 years. Well,
That's the kind of. Oh, sorry.
No, well, just according to Reddit, hopefully we will, yeah.
I was going to say, like, that's the kind of cutthroat, die-hard kind of mentality that will, put you in good stead for the rest of this game.
It wasn't even a cutthroat thing, actually. It was that the security officer of this corp actually ended up going, like, virtually insane in a way, just because it was over, virtual things. We don't know if they were insane, but they were drunk all the time. And they ended up harassing a lot of members of the corp, and ended up, shooting on us, threatening to steal our assets and stuff like that. And it's just like, why are we going through this? And I started asking a bunch of questions. CEO was very stagnant on doing anything about it, and so we, talked to a couple of people, then put out a message in corp. I dropped it, and then built it up, and dropped an Astrahaus a week later.
And the rest, they say, is history.
at least it will be.
At some point.
I think because I've promised most people that the Blue Horseshoe Club should stick a little bit to the name. So McLeod was so nice and helped me out with getting some content. So I've prepared a little clip. So anyone out there that's expecting a lot of market stuff is going to have to make do with this, and then whatever content might arise in the rest of the show. So I'm going to give you a nice little video, and then...
Is this the video that I'm thinking of?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Let me just get it from the show notes. I'm a pro.
It's alright, bro. It is a good video, I have to say.
Please play.
If you started it up, then you like and put it into the scene, you might need to like refresh to the scene to get it working. Just FYI.
There it is.
There you go. Oh, thank you.
Pip pip, what ho, I'm Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne. Or quite possibly the guy from the front of the Monopoly board thing. Anyway, I'm here to talk to you about yesterday's budget, in more detail. It's a little bit complicated, so I've got some reminders here in my red box. Off of the budget. Tally-ho. The price of cigarettes is going up by 50 pence a packet. And the price of petrol is coming down by 1p a litre. But envelopes, biros, and staplers all remain stationary. Well, yes, pay attention. In the building sector, chimneys are going through the roof. In clothing, bras are taking off, although knickers are falling fast. And caps are peaked. Bibles are showing profits. It's an Old Testament joke, everyone. After last year's takeover, Cadbury's need a boost. Because sherbet fountains face a double dip. Leg waxing is a rip-off. And the Brazilian is a complete rip-off. Thanks to the popularity of Brian Cox, telescopes are looking up. Salt is feeling the pinch. Cushion manufacturers thought they'd be stuffed, but in fact they're very comfortable. What? And finally, let's see what this means for ordinary British workers. Hairdressers face an endless series of cuts. Builders are bricking it. Lifeguards are being forced to make savings. And all across the UK, tree surgeons are having to cut branches. However, there is one key section of society which remains completely unaffected by the cuts, and that is multimillionaire, Oxford-educated wallpaper heirs, like me. Cheers, righto, I've got a dash now. Satan's cock isn't going to suck itself, tell you.
And that should take us back. So that was a little bit of light entertainment for those that actually do need some market-related content. I'm going to take this straight into the first serious topic and the first guest. I would like to ask Chandran a little bit about how his introduction to Eve was and how he's actually managed to make more money per tick than I am capable of when I'm maxing all my money.
Okay. So when I started playing Eve, I streamed my first day playing Eve, and I didn't know who anyone was, but I got raided by both Rain Chocolate and Eve Scout, and they dropped the big hosts on me, and everybody came and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a new bro! He's so cute! Oh my god!" And I was an alpha. Wait, no, this was before alpha was a thing, so it was like a trial. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just doing my trial. I'm checking out these missions. They seem cool. And so I instantly get about 2 billion dropped on me, and they're saying, "Go buy a Plex right now." And so I finished the missions, and I went and bought the Plex and upgrade, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And they're giving me all these suggestions. And I'm like, look, okay, so for the first day, I'm just going to continue doing missions just to get a feel for the game. And then I did the Sisters of Eve storyline quests. And I got like a lot of in-game mails from all these corps, looking for new members, and one of them stood out above the rest, and I joined the corp New Eden's Best, and they lived in Lowsec in Istadard, and I had no experience of Lowsec or Nullsec or anything like that, and I remember when I was in there, they're like, "Oh, we're going for roams in Nullsec." I'm like, "Oh my god, we're all going to die. This is a horrible idea. What the hell's going on?" But to me, Nullsec was kind of just this scary place that I didn't know how people could live out there, and it was like I had no freaking idea where we were going or where we were. All I knew was letters, numbers, and a little symbol that said, "You're in quality F zone." But
you get the irony that you are the one living in Australia, right?
yes. But
where
everything
is
is
trying to kill you.
Yeah,
in
everything's
real
trying
life.
to kill you.
Yeah, but I'm used to Australia. I mean, I tangle with the spiders and the snakes and the scorpions and all the other little critters that can kill you in one shot, alpha damage you off the field. But anyway, so getting on to how I make my money. I don't rat. I don't mine. I explore sometimes, but mostly I get most of my money through donations of ISK while streaming or while singing, and people pay me. It's kind of like I kind of busk in game.
Yes, exactly.
So a good example of this is I'm in Goonswarm, and they have a meeting every week where hundreds of people show up to, and the leader of Goonswarm found out that I can sing. And so he's like, "Well, I'd like you to sing at every fireside." And one of the firesides I sung at, I got a total of donations for, in 3 minutes, 13 billion ISK. So,
see, that's a tick that matters.
That is quite
13
some
billion.
ISK power.
Someone call Quant. We need to nerf Shandrigan. His ticks are too high.
Yeah,
So-
but it can be hard, or it really depends on, like, because you're not relying on a static income of ISK. You're relying on the generosity of other people, and sometimes it really works out in spades. Sometimes you'll get nothing. So it's it's all on people's generosity.
And this is what I find a little bit fascinating, right? Because you are now in EVE post the infamous casino wars, where everything was funded by people gambling, or a lot of the EVE content was basically funded by that. The only other option was what I think has been termed nationalized moon money. That was pretty much the thing that ISK funded the old site, TMC. Now it's of course INN. But that means that there was a really unfair competition between these two powerhouses, the casino money and the nationalized moons, which meant that people like yourself that was trying to make a living off of donation and goodwill were basically pushed out. They didn't have a chance really to build their brand. And it's interesting to see now that we're turning back to some of these old models. So we're seeing people like yourself, people like Sarvox, people like even Marquis Dragon and Manic Velocity, and all these semi-professional entertainers. I think there was a joke at FanFest that Manic was saying that he's actually got more sponsors than was on the sponsor list of EVE's actual official FanFest sponsors, which was a little bit funny. It's just this whole ecosystem of gray area between, it's not really RMT, and then the whole paying ISK for services. I just would like to ask, how do you get started with doing this? Like, how did you figure out that this was the way that you could get into doing streaming in that specific niche?
So you're asking like why I started streaming and how I've kind of made a little bit of success of it. Well, I started streaming simply because ever since Twitch was created, I'd been watching Twitch, and I always loved it. And my dream has always been to make a living off of entertaining, be it singing, be it acting, be it with Twitch live gaming and entertaining people that way. And so the only reason I only started streaming last year in April of 2016 is because living in Australia, we have terrible internet. As in, before I got the new internet that's just been starting to be rolled out in Australia, fiber optics, I was on copper, and my upload speed was 0.15 megabits a second.
Holy smokes.
So yeah, there was no streaming possible with that. But
so guys, don't worry. We've got something that's better than 56k modems. You'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much. Like my download speed was about 1 megabyte a second before I got the what's called the National Broadband Network, which is the fiber optics.
I can then inform you that was about 90% of the American users back when Eve started. They were all on dial-up.
Wow.
That was why there was so much old school problem with ping wars and latency wars, where you were basically just doing things like actual DDoSing, and because it worked, you could, if you were on a decent line, you could DDoS your enemy easily. So that was an actual weaponized thing back then.
Wow.
Illegal, but a weapon that some people decided that they felt like they needed to use, which was just complete batshit crazy, in my opinion, anyway.
I believe we call those people scrubs.
Well, aside from, scrubs maybe, but the other people who took it even another level, actually cutting the the telephone lines to people's houses in order to kill stuff, that was going a bit too far.
The Russian threat.
That's Russians for you.
Yeah, I'd like to bring in Cliff on this, because if I'm not mistaken, Chandra, you are just a crazy amateur that found this niche, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It all just fell into place. Pure dumb luck.
Because you don't sing in real life, do you? Like,
sorry?
For money, you don't do any of this entertainment stuff in real life.
No. I've thought about getting a busking permit, but I just never have.
That could be really fun. That would be a nice story with pictures of you actually going out and doing the same thing in real life. And then you could compare the income.
Well, yeah, when Eve Down Under rolls around, I might be doing some live entertainment there.
What you should do is, you sing like normal songs on your Eve streams, right?
Singing Eve songs in real life.
So that's what you should do. Like in real life, you just sing the Eve parodies instead of the actual songs, and see what reaction you get.
I'm on the traditional pub crawl at Eve Down Under in Sydney. I'm going to go up to, because in the pub crawl we're going to come across a place with karaoke. I bet you that we will, and I'm going to say, okay, do you have Let It Be by the Beatles? And instead of singing Let It Be, I'm going to sing Little Bees.
That is going to be epic. I need that on cam. But I was going to bring in Cliff, because the reason that I kind of pulled Cliff into this, because I didn't know that much about him, is that Cliff does things relating to theater in real life. And I would like his comment as a new bro on the whole thing of the comparison of real life production of content, and how there really isn't any limit to what you can bring in to Eve skill set wise. Because I know that you're already talking about the thing that you really want to do, which is getting into the market, which is of course kind of my shtick. But when it comes to things like theater and how you produce things, have you seen how there's parallels between what you do in your everyday life and how Eve players are trying to copy some of all these things?
There is, and I see, and there was a discussion earlier. Well, firstly, just to reference how my why I should be talking. I'm a venue coordinator for a theater company and studio here in Toronto, and my job pertains, managing the space, managing the artists coming in, and getting their show up and running. I've been doing that for about 10 years through different avenues. So doing large scale productions and being just a stagehand on like the larger stuff, and now managing a smaller space but stepping up on my skills. One thing that I'm noticing really is that we're breaking with this new technology. There's so many people clamoring to get money from, at least in my industry, these large institutions that still represent the main sources of money, and Twitch really represents this coming new form of media as we see internet and cable and satellite become the same entity in a way. As we see, we see our smart televisions and our computers merging into one, and our consoles, merging into these entertainment boxes, where we're going to interact with everything we already have into one thing. You're going to see a lot more like smaller independent broadcasts, just as you're seeing the rise as in independent artists and independent theater companies and the rise of independent music, right? And it's now, and it's following this like startup wave that is just kind of based in the me generation, based on perhaps a generational exhaustion with large corporations and towing a line that's not theirs and wanting to be a more creative generation or something like that. But it's definitely relating to this way of breaking the mold. And if you can be innovative in how you do it, it's sometimes easier to just, sit here and talk and share information and talk to people. And so, my specific interest in streaming right now is actually children's entertainment and how it can engage them in new ways in socializing with each other and responsible internet choices, but also learning through fun and not necessarily bashing them over the head with educational content like
how do you see the level of quality of the Eve content creators? I don't know how far you've gotten in digging in all the old stuff, and well, personally I of course always keep pointing to things like the productions of Rooks and Kings and things like Clear Skies. And then of course, if we're going to do a little bit of name dropping, I do think that the quality of some of the video edits that I've seen Porkbutt making is pretty much on par. He made a amazing video thing from eVegas last year. I'm just thinking, when you as a professional sit there and look at this strange community that Eve is, how do you compare, right, the quality? Is it getting there? Are we still useless amateurs, or are we getting to a point where we're kind of entering disruption?
I'd say, like, looking at, productions like Imperium News, right? We're looking at a whole network of money being donated and invested, right? And so clearly there's an ability to produce, but that also represents this, perhaps in a way, that is the institutions I'm talking about in the real world, right? The larger stations, the larger theater companies, the companies able to get the grants, the large private donations, right? That are already have a base in a way. I'm not saying, well, the Imperium, it's in the name, right? And so they're able to do that, and so they're able to perform these high quality, and if they select people, right, they're able to get them gear to produce higher quality content. But you see that growing in other operations, and I have yet to get back to some of the no longer active podcasts and streams and or YouTube videos, and it's kind of just existing what's going on right now. But I mean, it's definitely getting there. And if you look at other Twitches, right, and the level that they're getting to, the competitions, right, the Eve NT TV is great, right? But if Eve NT is going to do this, they need people that are going to, what does it sound like, and how do I monitor this, right? And how can we get more effect in there, and how can we get more cameras and less and adding less of this? It's just the UI that we're kind of looking at. We're all used to it, right? But how can we get people looking at these competitions in ways that aren't just for the game, the players that already understand the mechanics and what they're looking at, right? And the interface that you see on EVNT and the stuff you'll see in 2 weeks on the AT are incredibly informative, right? But it's a bit of a garden wall, or a walled garden, sorry. And that makes it for this hard to translate to, hard to get into, right? I had it on my TV today, and my wife was able to pop in and watch it and get into it a bit, but at the same time they're constantly in the largest view, which we have to see, right? But we need this way to use this great imagery that we have on a constant level to be engaging new audience members and the current audience members. And they're doing a good job with the broadcasting, and the commentators are fantastic. They're incredibly knowledgeable. That's important, right? And they get excited when it is wonderful and exciting. There was some great moments today. Shout out to that Blackbird that did amazing and survived an entire fight. That was brilliant.
Hard to do.
That was brilliant.
I think it's interesting that you point out so many things about the tech thing, and I think I would like to maybe pass it a little bit to McLeod and involve him in the topic, because McLeod is doing the button punching for INN, and I know one of his boss, Skeptic Nerd Guy, is one of the guys that was running the Imperium version of what EVNT is doing now, sort of as an outsourced branch of CCP. All of this technology that we've been getting, and this is recently, right? I'd say within the last 3 years, it's exactly on par with a lot of the stuff that the professionals are working with. And as Cliff kept pointing out, these technologies are now getting better and better and getting into our households and up on our walls. So we're no longer watching the America's Cup or the hockey matches or football matches. We're watching the AT or other esports or other streamers or
live
shows,
improv games.
right?
Yeah, and that's the really cool thing is, like, as technology increases in everybody's home, sort of, you're getting your connected TV to the internet. Like, I mean, I found myself watching YouTube clips on, the TV in the lounge, in the living room kind of thing, just, without kind of thinking about it. And, when that kind of situation happens, it breaks the kind of the monopoly that, like, the really large corporations, the really large kind of, sort of groups, it sort of breaks that ability for them to lock everyone out who doesn't have, the huge amount of capital to be able to put together a large broadcasting kind of corporation. So, your ability to get to a larger audience into a more kind of, and find a new audience is amazing. Like, I can quite clearly sort of see that. I mean, if it hasn't already been happening, if it's not happening already, it's going to be happening soon. That, you'll find a lot more people watching internet broadcasts on their living room TV than the general kind of network kind of stuff.
Also because
Exactly.
And that
it's
really helps us. That really
participation,
helps
right?
a lot of things.
It's
Yeah,
the
it
fact that,
helps.
that you're part of it. You're not just consuming. You are potentially also
Yeah.
doing something related to it. So you're kind of like a colleague suddenly. It's not just disruption in the traditional sense, where it's just more professional companies can get access and the whole barrier of entry has been lowered. It's been lowered to the point of hobbyists now, right?
Yeah, it's been lowered, but the other thing is you have to meet people halfway. You can't, it's as much as lowering the barrier of entry is, like, people still want to watch decent stuff. People still want to watch stuff that looks, fairly well put together, kind of thing. And that's one of the kind of drives. That's one of the kind of, the sort of kind of guiding principles that INN has. Like, we understand that it's a hobby, because we're not like bringing a salary in from it in any way, shape, or form. So we have to kind of understand that, like.
Can you say that again so Sarah can actually hear it?
Yeah, that's the point.
No,
But
because you're right. But the professionalism is massive, right?
But that's the thing. It's the professionalism is there, and the reason why the professionalism is there is because a lot of people who like doing their hobbies, like, they get kind of a sense of fulfillment, a sense of pride with it, and doing something good and having it look good and function well, and all that is exactly what you want. Like, it makes you feel proud.
Yeah.
So,
and when we're talking about original content creators, right, there's this access to your audience that is directly interested in what you are talking about, right? Rather than trying to if you're doing it, if it's a live show, right, specifically, trying to just smash your local city and say, everyone who's interested in this, come to this, right? And having to rent a brick and mortar space and having to build and pay for rent, or, or paying for someone else's rent through a rental cost, or all this stuff. You have direct audience to worldwide who can directly fund you, who can directly donate to you through Patreon and other sources, and they can reward you for things you like, and then you have metrics connected to, just as we do in the real world. How did those ticket sales go, right? If you're a smart streamer, you're looking at, okay, what show, what episode, what times. If you're watching your peaks, when did it go down? Okay, when I started rambling for 3 hours or whatever, and I didn't have anything going, or and it went up when I started dancing again, or something like that. And if you're smart, you're measuring those analytics, and you're using that to then help you design the content that is going to keep bringing back. And if companies are smart, if CCP has any intelligence in them and is paying any attention to the streaming communities that are going on, and the money people, and the instant marketing opportunity that is streaming for these companies, right? How quickly did player PUBG grow because of the streaming communities? How quickly have some of these tiny little independent operations exploded overnight because of streaming communities? And we're seeing this integration into Twitch through Neocom, and I actually haven't even used it yet because I'm waiting for a better connection, by the way. Canadian connection kind of blows sometimes.
The outskirts are getting
thanks to a
connected.
great state monopoly that was just given away to 3 companies that then now own it. It was brilliant, great. Anyways, so there's just this opportunity for all levels to benefit, and I think the companies that are looser with their IP to the sense that it benefits the people that are creating the content are seeing huge gains on that.
You're bringing on a very scary topic, and we should touch upon it just a little bit, especially because we have the honor of having Shandragan with us today. When we're talking about things like IP, of course, in the sense that we're talking about CCP's IP and our backgrounds being actually owned by them. All these things that we use are basically theirs, and they allow us to use this. But when it comes to other types of content, especially things like music, this is one of the horrors of doing all this streaming content, right? Because the copyright industry is so draconian and, well, Nazi really, in the way that they are behaving. And even if Chandra is just using maybe a little bit of backing music, just the a cappella, the no vocals music, he risks getting a strike, right? So it's really difficult. And then on Twitch, they kind of allow it, but then they delete it after the fact. That means that you can't propagate your product after the fact. I'd like to ask Chandra, do you think this is going to continue? Do you think we're going to keep seeing this copyright enforcement in the near future? Because things like what we're doing is getting stifled, right?
Yeah, look, I honestly don't know, but in my view on it is, if someone is singing your song, be it bad or good, it's still drawing people to that song. And if they go, you know what, I'd like to hear what it actually sounds like, they check out your song. If they like it, they might be like, oh, I might buy this. Sales go up. But I don't know why they would want to stop that. I mean, that's kind of just shooting yourself in the foot by saying, oh no, we won't take this free marketing. No, go away. But
it's a mystery,
I'd
right?
say
It's
singing
it's
is-
shooting yourself totally in the
I've always
foot.
thought it was crazy, the fact that, like, this thing has got a whole load of hits, and now we're just gonna, strike it off, kind of thing. And you kind of think, like, well, it's free marketing, it's free, advertising, and just use it. Like, there's been so many, like, in the music world at least, there's been so many kind of like indie acts, kind of lowish kind of ground acts, who have specifically said, like, oh, we're not going to punish people for using our songs because it helps us with marketing and stuff. But it's when groups get to the kind of the large kind of the large music corporations, the Sony, the Sonys, all those kinds of ones, and it's just like, and they're so draconian in the way, like, as you said, like, Caleb, it's just.
And also because in corporate law, right, or in contract law, I'm pretty sure that when you read the details about things like patents and copyrights, to even have a case, you need to prove that you have lost something, right? And I'd be inclined to agree with Chandra, and this is kind of what I would like to see the legal system move forward to, right? It's not loss, it's gain. This has now been proven again and again and again with things that are considered non-profit and sharing and even considered piracy, right? It's creating more sales. How can they keep this argument of, well, we've been losing sales? No, you haven't. You've got more sales. We can prove this again and again and again. If your thing is shit, and then you argue that you've lost sales, then you've lost fantasy sales, things that would never actually be a sale. People have seen it and they said, this is shit, I'm not getting this.
Yeah, but there's also this other opportunity that we have as content creators, right? And that I always try and encourage the younger groups that I work with that are often using copyright stuff and whatnot. And I'm like, unless there's a really specific point you need to use that for emotional purposes or nostalgia reasons, whatever, and I completely understand those reasons, right? There's always an opportunity and a benefit for all parties to be looking into other content creators to work with, to partner with, to say, hey, if you provide a soundtrack for me, we'll link it to you every time, and you can get your custom soundtrack, you can get something interesting, and you're benefiting a community that is interested in breaking away from the same models that you are, in a sense, and that it is interested in creating the same kind of communities on a different scale. And as soon as you can bridge these gaps, right? As soon as you can use this, cross-media, multimedia, in a sense, right? Because we're talking about artists, visual artists, all manners of things. As soon as you can make that a cohesive network of people working together and supporting each other, then there's possibilities there, right? And we can break away from these needing to play Rolling Stones all the time when we want to roll it on our ships or so, whatever, right? And worrying about these things, right? We're benefiting and we're building up other people.
Yeah, I would like to sort of change the topic a little bit, because this is one of the things that is potentially going to trigger me, and then I'm going to end up doing a rant, and people are most likely going to need to yell, "Shut up, Caleb." So I'm just going to shift it a little bit into Chandragan's Many Billions, and talk about things like, because on one side we have this donation thing and people's willingness to give to the content creators, and I think we've proven that this happens, right? There is actually money out there. There is people willing to pay for these services. So I would like to then ask, when you have reached the point where you get all this money, which is pretty rare, have you considered how you're then going to get that money to do something else, right? Well, this is a money show, to make more money, right? How are you thinking of using it? Are you just going to buy AT ships and go and blow them up, or have you considered actually using it to get a group and compensate them for supporting your work and things like that?
I haven't really thought of it because it's other than money like ISK that I've got from the streaming part, the big money when I got into Goons and started singing for them, I haven't really found out what I'm doing with it yet, to be honest. It's kind of just been sitting there and I've been going, well, it looks like I don't have to pay money for a subscription for a while, but
you should use it to make. You should use it to collect a backing choir for yourself.
That would be a fun one.
that could be interesting. I just got to find a couple other people who can sing. But I mean, the only problem with that is the ping issue, because if you've ever tried to sing with someone over voice comms, the people listening hear it kind of like, you know how like those songs. Did you ever in school have to sing a song where
everyone is not
a part would start first,
cue, yes.
And then when they got to a certain point, the next people would start, and then at a certain point, the next people would start. It's kind of like that. So unless you're doing one of those really rare songs, it's just not going to fly.
But McLeod isn't. Am I wrong? I seem to remember that because I might inform people. McLeod is a little bit in the industry with sound and audio stuff. I seem to remember that there's an actual software that does this for remote music creation and choirs and stuff like that. That actually kind of works and makes sure that the latency is okay. And
there's a few things. There's a few kind of like amateur kind of ones. There's a few like versions of that which are more professional, like some kind of things that DigiDesign and Avid kind of do, who are like basically the Avid, basically one of the largest companies that makes audio visual equipment and audio visuals, like software for sound production, both live and recorded kind of thing.
Because I know that we have so many musicians in E, right? It would be fun if we could reach a point where we could get one of the Eve drummers and one of the Eve guitarists and one of the Eve bassists and then someone like Chandragan and actually do a live stream.
It'd be very difficult. You kind of have to play around with the you'd have to really get a very good feel on the amount of latency that you have between all the different people who are going to be playing, and then you're going to have to also not only that, you're going to have to add latency like artificially in order to actually get people in time, because latency isn't going to be one of those things that is standard or stepped in a certain amount of milliseconds. So you kind of, if you have someone who's in that awkward kind of degree of latency where they're like a quarter, they're like I mean, over here I'd say like a crotchet kind of people, like say a quarter beat out or something like that. Like you're gonna have to add the latency to bring it into kind of sync, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but aren't we getting to a point where the latency is so minor, especially with rollout of things like fiber, that it's almost not an issue unless you're doing something extremely fast?
No, there's a big difference here where it comes to there's a big difference in terms of latency. There's two things. There's basically bandwidth and there's latency. Like bandwidth is something that we've been getting better and better and better at, sort of basically release bandwidth so people can download as much as they want or upload as much as they want. Latency is not going to go away until we develop some kind of super quantum kind of like, you basically, if anybody's seen like Stargate, Atlantis or something like that, where they have those like things that can communicate like instantly, like no matter how far away they are. When we create something that's like that, but for like computers to connect to each other, like that's when latency goes. But like until that time, latency is always going to be here because there's a finite length of time that it takes one photon to get from one location to another. So
it's going to be a little while yet.
We can work on that.
What about your latest project, Sandrigan? Would you like to pitch this on stream? Because I'm not sure that everyone has seen that yet.
Are you talking about Planet Eve?
Oh yes.
Oh,
okay. So Joe Barbarian a while ago came to me because I'd done this David Attenborough voice just as a joke in voice comms, and I've done voice acting with the David Attenborough style voice before, but never for anything in Eve. And he came to me and said, "Look, I have this idea for some YouTube videos. All I need is someone with that kind of voice to just do some voiceover work." And I was like, just give me the lines. I'll it only takes me about 10, 20 minutes to do it because I can say anything in the voice. I've been doing it for so long. And it's really easy to just record over Audacity. So he just gave me a whole bunch of lines and I did that in about 15, 20 minutes, gave it back to him. And I mean, all I did was the voice. That's it. He put together the music, the visuals, all that good jazz. Like, this is his achievement, not mine. I just helped a little bit with the vocals. But so we're going to be making more of those. Expect another episode in about a week and a half.
I am looking forward to it. I'd like to go back to Cliff for a short segment because we all know that Eve Meet has now, well, most people will know that Eve Meet has now been moved under Event, and they're trying to bring the level of professionalism that they have had with the AT and stuff like that into the whole event. And Event has had their own events, and basically a lot of player events have been moved to a level of professionalism where, well, Eve Vegas was started as a player thing and then taken over by CCP. And I'm just thinking, since you're doing event stuff in real life, have you considered actually maybe applying that and doing something Eve related?
Absolutely. There's a Eve Meet here in Toronto that's doing stuff, and they've kind of already got a really great flagship going. So I don't really need to jump in with them. What I am doing right now is creating another Eve community or special interest community that I haven't seen around yet. 420 fleet. So, yeah. So we're gonna be having just right now. We're just building the Discord, building a network of people interested, and they can just chat with each other. But there are some plans to maybe bring a group together to talk the spice and making sure the spice flows. You
do know that you almost signed on to go to Eve Amsterdam this year, right? You can't really get around that. If you're starting a group called 420, you kind of need a representative for that group at Eve Amsterdam.
Maybe if I can evolve myself a little bit further, and it's something I got to do. But I got to already go to Mexico for a friend's wedding, and so there's a few other priorities first, unfortunately. But so we're building that right. I'm building that right now. Anyone's interested, I'll share the Discord in chat, and you can join in, and we can build it. But yeah, we can also send a representative and organize a meet in Amsterdam, and I'm happy to cheer it all on and shout it out for whoever wants to do it. But yeah, and it's always hit my mind that getting into kind of more my personal interests rather than like what I thought I wanted to do professionally for the rest of my life, getting a little exhausted in live event, like, you know, professional live event and theater and making art. So it's a little bit of being like, well, how could I apply that, you know, production managing in conferences and, you know, events like Eve Vegas, and helping Eve Toronto grow its events and helping get Eve Toronto larger booths and Eve larger booths at conferences. Here is something I'd totally be, you know, happy to help and work with and whatnot. That's kind of, you know, where I'd be interested in taking my skills if it was to do that. But it's definitely, you know, if people are interested in talking how to build a production in terms of an event, a live event, I have 10 years experience of doing it, production managing it professionally. So please feel free to contact me on Twitter or whatever, at Cliff Boland. Happy to, you know, speak to you and whatever about building events and what do you think you want to do if you're looking for a professional quality thing, and how do you scale that if you have how much money you need and all that kind of stuff and what you're looking at, but where to start looking. But it's definitely something I'd be interested in helping people do, and at a certain point maybe help companies like CCP, like Twitch, like other companies I'm very interested in seeing grow and do something further with their plans. Again, speaking about like kids education, I think a program like Twitch Kids would be absolutely brilliant. So kind of separating the content a little bit so that we can help children discover the joy of gaming without, you know, having to watch Call of Duty guys like swear at each other and you know.
If you start anything like that,
God,
or
yeah.
anything relating to children, don't call it anything like choir for kids or it's
Anything for kids.
Just a suggestion.
No. And it's the whole thing. It's like if you know, it's a very difficult thing to do children's entertainment over the internet because of the interactivity and with it. But whatever, that's, you know, another whole other issue we can talk about. But yeah, no, it's about, and that's why you would create, and why I would encourage companies like Twitch, because I mean I think YouTube already has a kids version, pretty sure. Netflix has a kids version, so it really makes sense for if you're going to be encouraging gaming, if you're going to have people paying Peggle and even kids streaming.
Get that toddler pound.
Well, not get that toddler. Fuck it, yeah. New child labor law, you know, international child labor laws. Like, internet's the safe space. Whatever, fucking make them work.
Captain Young. I'd like to get a specific question out, because it's something that really is. It's kind of weird for me to see guys like you come in the way that you do. When we're doing things like this what's usually called the meta of Eve and content creation on totally outside of the client and on conditions that are community building based and entertainment based and all that. What strikes me as interesting is to see usually people mature to this very, very slowly, right? Especially the old guys that hardly want to turn on a cam because they still live in the 90s and still think they need to be anonymous and mostly post on user groups and use IRC and all this stuff. Anyways, change is hard, right? But you guys have come into Eve at the top of the meta. You've basically dumped straight in from the other side. And especially, I'd like to direct this as Chandrigan first, because to me it looked like a baptism by fire. It's like straight into Eve, hardly ever played it, didn't have time to even acclimatize in any way, and boom, you're in there being expected to create all this high level stuff and be part of, well, getting the mittens embrace and all that stuff. How's that been, and what are you going to do with that now?
Well, I mean, it was kind of a trial by fire. I mean, when they first rated my stream, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? No, you should be doing this. Why don't you go try this? Oh, mining's fun. No, don't do mining. Go out PvP. We gave you money." But like,
it's like you're pulled into like a million different directions all at once.
Yeah, but McLeod,
pretty much.
You must remember that there's been a few names in EVE that's been kind of pulled into the game like this, right? Because they are dropping in from that level. I would say that someone like Chocolate Rain, which I'm a huge fan of, and she's also commentating on the 18 this year, I think. But she's at least in the EVE part of it. She got into the game, and just when she started streaming, she just got that catalyst boost, right? Going from what I would call maybe a middle active player to being extremely invested in the game, right? It's like this meta layer basically just takes you and just propels you into everything in EVE. You get full access to all the people that can teach you things and help you get into the higher tiers. I know that that's a bad term, but Chandragan is one of the recent ones I've seen, and now Cliff is coming in, and he's only played like 2 months, and he's already straight into all these things, goes straight into the market side of stuff, being interested in that. And what would your suggestion be to new players that might think they have any of these talents? I know that we all do recruitment posts and say, come and do writing and come and do streaming and all these things, but people are a little bit slow to actually say, okay, I'm going to try this. And Cliff, to you, how do you feel this has been on your side? Was it too fast, or did you get uncomfortable with any of it?
I mean, the reason I jumped into EVE because I wanted to have a 14-day trial. But no, the reason I kind of stuck around was reading about Chiba and his brokering, really, because I was like, oh, being the guy that everybody trusts, that sounds amazing. That sounds like such a cool, like, other level. So I was already interested in playing not just the basic mechanics of the game by the time I was done the tutorial. And because you have to learn so much, and because you have to dig into EVE University if you really want to, if you're trying anything really to play this game well, you've got to do the reading. And so you slowly discover these things, and you slowly discover the YouTubers and then me, I guess I was interested in like, oh, it'd be fun to listen to a EVE podcast, right? And so I downloaded that. Started listening to the podcast, and then realizing that the podcast were Twitch streams, got into Twitch, discovered Twitch, and kind of everything changed for me then.
Twitch does that to you.
I know, it's crazy, but I think what's really missing is for new players to be able to feel like they can dive into this level. And I've heard this a few times in the streaming community, is this connection that of promoting it, right? Like when you launch, in the launcher, like who's streaming right now? Look at all the streamers, right? And CCP, partners with streamers to help promote the game and are building this active, like, hey, you want to learn? Watch this streamer. You want to and they put in the help, they put it in whatever, and that that's also why the Twitch button could exist, right? It gives you a connection of all the streamers going on, and building that community and fostering that community will get more people into thinking that they can do it, and then they just got to do it, right? Get a webcam, get a good headset.
Because it's funny for me that the quality of
I haven't even started streaming yet, technically.
Well, the EVE community's quality of work, right? The professionalism, all these deep meta things. I'm pretty sure that it's actually of a higher quality or in front on things like novelty and pushing the boundaries than any other game and any other streaming service. Of course, with the exception of stuff that's real life based, so things that are mostly on YouTube now, which is also why it's strange, this whole Twitch and YouTube. I'm still puzzled that Twitch actually managed to grab the gaming community in this way. But the point I'm trying to make is that I'm expecting that the next thing is in the EVE meta is going to be even more novel and even more like professional life, and I just don't see CCP taking advantage of this and pushing this far enough, especially in collaboration with the entities that do this. It's the same with Twitch. Until recently, it was really difficult to be partnered, right? I don't know, Chandrigan, have you gotten partnership yet?
No, not yet. From what I've heard, you need 100 viewers concurrent for a month.
But you have
get
potentially, 1,000 viewers on shows when you're under the INN banner, right?
Yes. I just need to get back to streaming on my channel.
And then pull some of them.
I mean,
yeah,
the
pretty
data.
much.
The data from 2 years ago is saying, Twitch earned 43% of a 3.8 billion market share of revenue out there for gaming content creation alone, right? And if CCP is not realizing that is money being invested into their content that they could be pushing further, that they could be supporting. And that, it's not being sent into their content because it's being sent onto every other game out there that's on the top of the list, right? It's just, oh man, that's a huge number, and that's a big industry that you're missing out on if you're restricting who can do it, how it can be done.
I'm just thinking way back in the day, when in the early days of EVE, CCP was very squeamish about even remotely promoting any in-game group or actual players or mentioning anyone by name because they were so afraid of the whole favoritism thing. But in that case, you could kind of understand it, but it was also a very bad thing for them because it didn't create that emergent content. Now recently they've moved away from this fear, and they've gone full in and do interviews with players and use them in the narrative and let the player story be the driving force of the game. I'm just thinking, don't you guys think that the next natural step is to do that professionally, to let the players in EVE be kind of like semi-professionals or stakeholders in a sense that actually makes this more profitable from a marketing perspective? Because if we have to sit there and sacrifice our own money on doing content and paying for servers and paying for accounts and paying for incentivizing the members under the groups that we create and all these things have overheads, and if CCP is not willing to help, they're not going to get the benefits. They're going to see these burnouts again and again and again. And the only exceptions to that rule is when you reach a critical mass. And when you reach a critical mass, then you basically have power over CCP. So if you haven't built a good relationship, CCP are going to be in trouble, right? This is kind of what you see with the Imperium a little bit. They are being nice, but they have a lot more power and potential pressure on CCP than they're actually using.
And what you also see is because certain companies like the Imperium can put more resources, more people at the problem, combating the lack of revenue that because they can't partner with CCP easily enough, and they can't, obviously Imperium is partnering with Twitch now, but it is difficult for then people like yourself, like myself, like Shan here to build that content and quickly turn around the cost, the overhead that we have invested into something that we want to share with the world. And so long as the content is benefiting the company that you are sharing, where's the libel? Where are the damages? Right? It's not like CCP is streaming their content constantly and creating their own network of people's. They're not doing it, right? And until you're doing it, you're allowing this slow centralization of content.
I think
and that is dangerous.
CCP has missed a big opportunity, and I think they've missed the boat on the power of that creativity that the players are making. Because if you take some of the most viewed videos ever relating to Eve, they have nothing to do with CCP. They're actually player created. The really hit wonders of the players get a lot more hits than almost all of CCP's content, because CCP's content is basically just plowing back attention into the actual community. This is also one of the problems with their game design and tweaking at the moment, that it's basically cannibalizing themselves, right? It's cannibalizing their own player base and not actually creating new content or new players. So what I'm sort of saying is that if they don't go in proactively and partner up with these players in some way, I don't know exactly what model they should use. They can't do the hiring anymore professionally. They can't just say, oh, we're going to snap Rise and Larrikin and all these people and just hire them. Because that's not sustainable. There's too many to hire them all. They need something else. And of course, some of us content creators reach a point where we make a little bit of beer money from our YouTube hits or our streams and stuff like that. But if that's not nurtured even further to take it to the next level by CCP, then there's a huge risk that it's not going to last.
I just wanted to say a little bit about this. Sorry, Sean. But like,
That's
one of the kind of things like very much related to what you were saying, Caleb, is like, like CCP like grabbing certain people from, from the kind of player base in order to sort of, further develop their, their dev team. Kind of like, a few of the devs fairly recently, but sometimes part of the stuff that actually makes that kind of those sorts of people work is not their individual talent, but actually their talent, like being supported by the team that they had, like around them at the time. And you kind of see it a little bit with like football and soccer and kind of like American football, kind of like when certain groups like go in and poach a certain player out of a certain team, and suddenly with them thinking that like, oh, it's gonna they're gonna be just as good like in our team than they were in the team that we poached them out of, and it turns out not to be the case, because the talent there requires a bit of a support network to sort of really make them shine. And so like what I kind of I'm hoping that CCP will kind of see, and hoping that it will kind of nurture, is actually not poaching people out of the community to sort of fill their ranks.
It's just that it seems as if
more
CCP,
look towards
they missed the
more
point
look towards
of
actually like supporting that group rather than like just poaching people out of it.
What's going to happen when fanfic or fan creation stuff suddenly reached this critical mass and goes 50 Shades of Grey like quality or popularity, right? That's a fact, right? That grew out of a fanfic, right? And it's also some of the people like Rooks and Kings and Clear Skies and This Is Eve and Porkbutt's Vegas video and stuff like that. The fact that we are still so niche means that a lot of people don't actually get to see this, right? But if they suddenly did, there could be a conflict of interest, just like with something like 50 Shades of Grey, where she actually changed it and rewrote it so it was no longer under the potential IP, right? So instead of having the investment already there or the models already in place to benefit from the potential player created Empires of Eve, or the next level of this. Right now we're still struggling with the remnants of the fact that we never got the walking in stations, we never got anything except a very bad carbon engine running in the captain's quarters. But if we had something like Unreal, the creative potential of the player base would take us beyond what we saw with Clear Skies. And that's now really old, right? So the level of quality that could be created, and now we're talking things like Shandragan that does voice acting. Yes, it's comedy, but there's a huge potential to take this even further. We have things like the discourse that's really well made, and the silk voice of Cerulean Wath. There is more quality in the player base than can ever be in house vaulted in CCP. Why not figure out how to benefit from it and, well, dangerous word, monetize it? Figure out how to.
Well,
do
it's
it
not really
in the right way.
monetizing it. It's just basically getting it to more people.
Mm-hmm.
Really, if anything, you know, you don't really need to monetize it. Like, monetizing will come from people seeing it, seeing the value, and going, you know what, it'll probably be a nice thing to be able to support this kind of stuff, so more of this kind of content like occurs.
Yeah, I'm
You know.
thinking things like compensating the player base for really good content, right? Because CCP can only make so many new videos presenting the game, and teasers, and marketing videos, and all that stuff that comes out usually at FanFest in Vegas. There's a limit to how much capacity they have. There's no limit to how much capacity there is in the player base. That means that they can basically compensate in a very cheap fashion using some of their own assets, and the quality and the consistency and the cadence of production would be huge. And just given that incentive, the fan site thing was their first little thing. It's really not working, and I think they need to rethink that whole thing. So someone can say, oh, just like in INN, right? INN has basically taken the first step in paying what I would call the first decent amount of ISK for people creating content. 500 million is a really nice spit in the bucket for something that's potentially between 30 minutes and an hour's work, right? That's a good tick.
Totally.
I mean, even just to go so little as to say, you know, hi CCP, my name's Shandragan, I'm a streamer. How about you just give me some cruises and I'll take my friends and we'll go make some awesome content for people to watch and get into your game.
Yeah, but it needs to be in a system that people can understand and read, and what are the demands from CCP semi-professionally, right? So now you're mentioning things like frigates, but this is not really the level of compensation. They need to take it to the next level, to the same level as the AT, right?
I mean, it is an affiliate program and a partner program that you would have to create, right? You know, you're looking for content creators to start out, to show the initiative themselves, and then you put up a thing that they can sign up and they can submit to, and then they have certain rules to, you know, like that, getting frigates, getting cruisers and whatnot. There's certain rules what you can do. You can't you know, you just apply some rules so that it doesn't affect the general EVE player base, but it gets and it's not disrupting the game because you're favoring a certain party that is making you more money because they're bringing in more people and they're building your player base and they're keeping your community interested in. But there's so you measure that out and you just make these rules, and you know, people don't follow it. Boom, it's easy to report because someone's watching it. Report, done. They're gone. I mean, it's games have already implemented that, and then they've already selected companies that they want to build and work with, right? Like EVE-NT is already one of those companies.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, you know, CCP are always trying to tread that line of, like, you know, well, I mean, to some degree, like, it can be argued that CCP are all sort of, you know, going to be wanting to tread the line of, you know, trying to look as though they're not showing favoritism in one way or the other way. But, like, even in that kind of sense, and even with, like, a partnership program, you can still show neutrality even by, you know, partnering with people who are, you know, quite clearly, at least in EVE, politically aligned in a certain way, by, you know, counteracting that by, you know, partnering with someone who is politically aligned the other way. You know,
and the point
you
is,
know, you don't need to be looking for that neutral kind of, you know, Jesus feature.
I think the important aspect is that meritocracy is not favoritism, right? Shandragan could just as well have been picked up by any other organization in EVE, right? Of course, there's a higher chance that he's going to be picked up by the Imperium, because I think Ares said that the Imperium is basically an organism that just gnashes up everything and then keeps the talent and spits out everything else. But why doesn't CCP not consider something similar, right? If it's based on quality and talent and merit, then it's not favoritism.
No.
And that's the point I would like to get across, that it's chance, and you can't nerf a critical mass organization like Goons or ignore them just because, well, that would be favoritism. No, it's not. If you're giving benefits to a group that's that large, it's not really favoritism. It's catering to a big segment of your player base. It's just that that it should be equal for everyone. So if someone is not affiliated with the Imperium and has exactly the same talent, of course they should get the same thing. You shouldn't base it on things that can be gamed, like how many views or clicks you have on your streams, or whether you're a partner with Twitch yet. This would be wrong, because that would be favoritism, because it can be gamed, right? But if it's based on quality, I think it's perfectly fair that CCP says, well, I want this guy to make content.
Yeah, and quality is reflected in the metrics, right? And that's what a company like CCP is always going to be built on. I mean, that's what our game is built on, metrics. But and so they're going to be looking at that, but that is quickly reflected because of quality, right? Like it's what gets hits, viral, and quality. And especially on the live aspect of things, when we're talking about streaming and talking and talk shows and competitions, we're talking about live. Quality is way more important than virality or memeness or whatever we want to call it. But
especially when they have to think long term, they have to think about lastability. They can't do the virality thing, because yes, it's got a little bit of a benefit now as a marketing thing, but the value of the long value is so much more important to them. I think sometimes CCP loses track of this fact.
Well, and Eve often kind of feels like a giant inside joke, to be honest.
Could you elaborate on that? I'd like to be in on that joke.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Jesus, and it's just lingo after lingo after lingo after lingo after lingo. And people are then hating on that lingo, and they're hating on CCP, and they're hating on these ethereal creatures that you have no idea who they are because they're CCP Posse, and you're like, wow, and it's just a giant inside meme that you're not necessarily a part of until you start watching it. But so what you need to, so that's what's the danger of making like viral based things, and that's what you're supporting. What's more important is making sure that the content has a shelf life, that new players can in a year can come back to the content, or at least a select few that then you can promote on a longer term. That will help grow it. And that will help them learn and get more into the other content, and then catch up, and then get because basically anything, half the content created for Eve is pretty much dead, except for some of the most basic, like how to run an MPE and how to mine, and thankfully they keep being updated, but the shelf life on a lot of Eve content is very short.
I mean, it's very short because it's a player sort of, it's a player narrative, right?
And also it's also kind of short because of the thing that I kind of hinted at earlier with the burnout and the hit by bus, and the fact that Eve is a generational game. So many people move on to get families, have kids. We're moving into an age of Eve where we're actually hitting the first generation of empty nesters, if I'm not mistaken. I myself, I'm an empty nester. My kids are pretty much adults and don't live with me anymore. So I'm thinking how the content that is created by the players, sometimes it needs to be, if not fully, then in part taken over and vaulted by CCP, or at least they need to have some sort of backup in the circumstance where someone moves on. We've seen this so many times, right? We've seen how Eve Guides just died, right? Because he was not playing anymore, and now that whole thing is gone. I'm not saying that Eve University is going to die tomorrow. This is the benefit of having very big, very old organizations. If you don't have that, you cannot protect that content. Now, we also just finished the last episode of Lockfox's show. That's also content that's going to be lost, right? Because if there was not the nurturing, if there was not the securing it and vaulting it, and of course Lockfox has tried to say, well, he wants to keep all these things running to some degree. But at some point, just like Eve Guides, maybe it burns out. Maybe he doesn't want to pay the upkeep anymore. And if he didn't have one of these agreements with CCP, CCP can't claim that they want to have the content to host it themselves. And this is the problem that we're facing now, because moving forward, if CCP wants the game to scale, they need to have these things in place, right? And I think I want to finish off with that's the outside and real life issue of Eve and content creators. The other part is what I was hinting at earlier about the fact that we are very willing to use our in-game assets and money to motivate each other, whether that is putting someone in a carrier or whether it's paying someone to write an article. And when you get these success stories, whether it's when, I think, was it John Grease that did that one video that almost got 1 million hits, right? This level of spontaneous success, like Chandragan getting several billion thrown in his face, and maybe he can scale it and keep doing this. What are you going to use all that money for if we don't have better systems to trickle the money down into the system or reinvest it? This is why now we've talked about Quant all day, and one of the things that Quant was presenting at FanFest to some of the people that was talking with him is financial products. Most people don't like bankers. Most people don't like financial products. This is a show about markets and financial products. But an important one in that is, how do you become a stakeholder in something like Chandragan? How do you feed money into what he's doing so he can feed the money into his powerhouse that generates profit, right?
Well, you hope that Chandragan has, thought about putting together a Patreon account. That's what I would think.
Well, I would say if people want to donate to me, say they give me 500 Plex bits, and they say, I want you to use this to give back to other players. What do? I run some giveaways.
Yeah, but that's
it helps my channel, and it helps everybody else.
But that's different, right? That's charity. I see there's a huge difference between charity and business. A charity is not supposed to make money. A business is. And if you could get in on the next Goon project, if you could invest in the next Mitani or something like that, how can you do that without the organizational tools inside the client? Now, I've just launched what I call a parking space or parking house for people's money when they go on breaks in the form of a mutual fund. But because we still don't have that many tools, a lot of it is really clunky, and we keep needing to hack the system and invent things, MacGyver everything, right? It's really difficult when CCP is so focused on flashy things and the short-term next expansion, and not fixing some of the old things and giving us features that have a long shelf life.
Well,
So
and we keep talking.
I was going to say, are you kind of talking like, say, in your shoes, someone's like, okay, I'm going away on a 2-month break, and I have 15 billion. I'm going to give that to you. You can use that 15 billion to make more money, give me back maybe a 5 or 10% upkeep on that, and keep the rest of what you made, so everybody's winning.
Yes, that's exactly what I've just started, a mutual fund. If you have money to spare and you want them to make sure that you at least carry on with inflation or the price changes, you can park them with me, and I will make sure that it's invested in assets instead of ISK, because most people don't know ISK is dead. ISK is worthless because it doesn't make new money. When you put it in resources, the resources will always have a growth in value. It's the same with Plex, but storing money in Plex can sometimes be a risky thing because of utility and changes. But it's the same with any asset, and we've never really had something like this before. We've had attempts to do things like player-created insurance, player-created banks, We have a rather okay bond and securitized loan system, but it's really clunky and we have to do everything ourselves. And what Quant was presenting is that he might be able to put in a feature that makes things like collateralized obligations, debt, loans, a feature in the game, so you can make a contract on it. It's this type of thinking that I think is needed if CCP is really hoping to get 10 years more out of this game, because it is the player-created content that keeps this game alive. And if you do not have tools to do that, it's eventually going to die. And I'm still just waiting for someone out there figuring out what CCP's unique selling point is and starting to copy some of it. They haven't done it yet, but by now we're way overdue someone copying it. I know there's a few things like Star Citizen that I still think is pretty much vaporware, but that's my personal opinion. And then you of course have all the players that have played EVE and are now moving into the industry. These people actually know what the unique selling point of EVE is.
Mm-hmm. I think if anything, that is the hardest part to theory craft or to work out of EVE. Like, we've player groups have always kind of had a kind of are quite proud of the way of the way that they can kind of theory craft their way around certain issues or certain problems. And like, I find it funny how EVE's unique selling point is the hardest thing to work out about EVE.
But as I say, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of older players in EVE that actually have got the source, the secret source down. But I'd like to end the show with a question to all of the guests, because I've played this game for 15 years and I'm not necessarily going to leave until someone actually shuts down the servers and turns it off. But I'd like to start with Chandra. Do you think you've only played something like a year?
Oh, not even. Like 8 months.
How long do you think you're going to stay?
That's a tough question. It's fun. It is a lot of fun. My original plan was to play it for quite a while and kind of build up my viewer base, and then slowly start introducing different games while still playing EVE. And I don't know, if the EVE bug bites me again, then I'll probably just stick with EVE. But I can't tell, life of a streamer. I mean, it's all good to play one game all the time, but if you really want to grow to the part where you're sustaining yourself simply off of streaming, EVE, I don't think it has the viewership right now. And also, as you were saying, the support from CCP to make that happen, unless you're Zarbox. And still, even though I think Zarbox has a job other than streaming.
You kind of need to get the bug or be adopted into the game, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
McLeod, you are pretty much a core part of at least one big organization in the game. How long are you going to stay?
I mean, I've tried to quit before. Like, I've had my kind of sort of situations where I've gone from one side of the galaxy to the other side, and back and forth, going from goons to anti-goons to sort of all seeing both sides of the equation, and having staying up 24 hours a day, 36 hours a day, kind of doing ridiculously dumb things, all in the name of keeping my side sort of on the cutting edge of of the game. And like, I've taken breaks from it. I've taken the biggest break was like 2 years, probably around about sort of 2-ish years. And even then, I kind of like I was playing sort of semi with goons in other things, but like at the end of the day, like there's nothing really like EVE, and I don't think there will ever be anything like EVE, because EVE isn't just something that you could you couldn't make EVE, like, even if like the most amazing kind of sort of games development company created a rival to Eve, like that wouldn't replace Eve, because Eve has like
15
10
years.
15 years of people's like hard-earned investment and like just history in the game, and you can't code that into a new game in any way, shape, or form. So I'm probably in it for the long haul, even if I think that I'm not, but I will always be coming back because I have friends here, and the friends that I have here are not friends of convenience. They're friends of people that I have specifically chosen to be friends of because they're good people and I really enjoy their company. Simple as.
Cliff, you came in 2 months ago and have basically been canonized into the meta and all the weirdness that is Eve. Do you think you're going to be an Eve for lifer?
I think, yeah, looking at, my interests and my personal, what I like to play and what I like to do, you'll always probably, from now on, see me around. There's definitely going to be times when I come and go, and I might have to say goodbye to my corp one day or something like that. Who knows? But because I have some ideas on how to stream or what I want to be streaming with, specifically, there is going to have to be some time investment on working on other content, working with other games and companies and people and streamers to build what I'm kind of interested in doing. Unfortunately, one of the main games I was really interested in doing just got sold to not Rockstar, to Take-Two. Well, basically the parent company of Rockstar, Kerbal Space Program. So I'm like, oh man, not working with an indie company anymore. That might be a little more harder, but we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so there's definitely going to have to be come a point, a little while, where it'll be me doing a bit more on another game. But because of what I want to do, I definitely need my adult content too for myself, right? So it's, and Eve's going to be that, and I love the empire building, and I love being a CEO and playing that way, and plus I'm just waiting for my skills to level up, so I have to.
So CCP, don't remove skills.
So I have to I have to do some waiting anyways. So
the waiting metric is a really good catch. I think it's safe to say that we have 2 for lifers and 2 very serious maybe for lifers in the room today. Last shout outs, Chandrigan.
Well, shout out to you for having me here. Thank you. I do appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Shout out to anyone who might or who is watching now or in the future. G'day. And if you'd like to catch me, my stream is twitch.tv/Chandragun. That's all A's, no O. And yeah, shout out to my corp, New Eden's Best, and Goons. Goons for life.
McLeod.
Shout out to my corp. I'd say the graduates, who are absolute fucking stellar bunch. And to my alliance, the initiative, because they are, especially considering that they headshotted GigX earlier in today, which is hilarious. But even so, I mean, the game's made up of both the people who you like and the people who want to fight you and kill you as well. So that's all good. But definitely shout out to INN and the INN crew, and also to our rival. Like Eve Media kind of outlets, because to be honest, being the sole Eve Media outlet would just suck. So we very much relish the competition that they bring.
Awesome. Oh, and you forgot to mention one thing. Aside from having the joy of shooting GigX, Wibbler got his Hunter's Tower this week. So he's got his Keep Star up. So,
he's got his Keep Star up. Nice.
From TNT.
Yeah.
And last, Cliff, shout-outs?
Shout-outs to my boys at Sorrel and Deep Space Enterprises, Nick, Carolus, Shinsan, Xanaroth, all the new members that have joined us. Thanks for putting your faith in such a new bro. To the people checking this out, thanks so much. Content creators out there, thanks for being such a huge inspiration and being a big gateway into getting more and more into Eve, and CCP for making a great game.
And then I would like to wrap it up by saying that next week, hopefully, if we can get back on schedule and when we get Roden back, I think we have Lady of Wrath from that did the presentation about economy at FanFest might be coming on, I think, but I need to double check because our schedule went out the window, so I kind of have to reschedule everything, and we are still hoping to get Rain and Marshmallow to come and talk about accounting, so I'm going to see which slot they actually get. So join us next time, same place, same time. Well, not same place because we're going back on EVNT. So it's still 2200 hours, Eve time, whatever that is locally. I hope that you show up and are as vigilant as someone like Chandragan that's coming from all the other side of the globe just to be part of this. Thank you very much for watching and see you next week.
07, guys.
See ya.
That's it.